Hi guys, welcome to this next tutorial. This next tutorial is going to cover some concepts that are a little bit more advanced than the previous ones. You can look over the left hand side here and you can see I've got a number of parts that all revolve around creating this engine sub-assembly. I'll just open that up. And the thing that's common to, I suppose, most of these parts is that a lot of them, if I can just spin this around, have this sort of four-way axle shape cut out through them, which then allows an axle sort of shape thing to go through and join them together. So what we're going to do, we're going to start with a simple part and then we'll get it a little bit harder as we go along. Alright, so the first part we're going to draw is this one here, which I've called groove locator, but let's just call this axle. And some of the things I want to pick up on here before we start modeling is this sort of cross axle shape that you've got on the end here. Now what this is basically, I'll just turn on this profile sketch here. Actually I'll spin it around that way, and if you can see the blue sketch there, I'll just go right back to the beginning here. This is the profile that we're after, which then gives us that shape. And you can see it's actually like a four-way cross profile inside of a circle. Now I've used calipers and I've measured up all of these diameters and approximate distances, so I'll tell you those during the tutorial. But you, of course, if you do happen to have any of these parts in your kit, you can use the same dimensions for this axle profile. What I'll also show you later on is how you can then take this sketch that you've drawn on this part and actually transfer this profile to another part, which is really handy. Alright, so first things first, so let's start by creating a new part identical to this one, and we're just going to call it axle. So let's go File and New Design. Straight away let's call it what it needs to be called, so I'm going to click on Save again, and I'm just going to call it Axle and Demo, so I know which ones are my demonstrations and which ones aren't. You'll notice here that I've created a sub-assembly folder off my normal folder. You might want to do that if you've got a number of sub-assemblies that make up an assembly. It's up to you. Click on Save. Usual thing happens, it comes up here and you can see it over in the data panel. Alright, so let's start to draw that sort of cross axle profile. So let's go to Sketch, choose any of the planes that you like. I'm going to choose this vertical plane. Go to Circle Tool, C for circle, click once in the center, drag it away, and the outside diameter of the axle is 4.8 millimeters. So type in 4.8, enter. And then let's zoom that up. Now I haven't got a mouse with me tonight, so I'm just learning how to use the trackpad, which I really don't like, but anyway, left my mouse at work. Alright, so there's the diameter that this sort of cross shape's got to be in between. So we'll do just some basic drawing of what that cross shape might look like on half of this object, and then we'll mirror it down to this bottom half over here. So just using the line tool, I'm just going to snap to a point on the circle, 1, hold it vertical, 2, and then snap to a second point on the circle. And then I'm going to do something similar over here, but to get it in the same spot on this side, I'm going to hover on the point there. You can see the dotted line brings across to the right, snap once, and you can see as I get closer it then snaps to the same height as this point over here. Snap 2 and then snap there like so. Now we won't bother putting it in down here. What we'll do is we'll put the constraints on here and then we'll mirror everything about a line through the center. So the last thing to do is just to put a temporary line here through the center, which we can use as the mirroring line later on. So click once and just snap to there. It doesn't really matter where it ends, just we're going to delete this later on. Then let's put some dimensions in between these lines. So use your dimension tool, and the distance between those two lines needs to be 2 millimeters exactly. And you'll notice that it might not put them exactly in the center, so you'll then also have to constrain one of these edges to the center point here. So while you're still in dimension, click on that edge and come down here until the center point of the circle highlights, click again and drag up, and that distance is obviously half of 2, which is 1. And now we're confident that that is 1 and that is 1 for a total of 2, so it's equal distance around the center. We need to make sure that is also the same for these 2 lines, so let's go from there to center, make that 1, and this one didn't move with it, so we need to do this one as well. To there and 1. Alright, rather than draw those 4 lines again, let's use the mirror tool. So I'll jump out of dimension by hitting escape. And I'm going to select 1 and hold down shift, 2, 3, 4 lines, come to the create tab at the top here, go down almost 3/4 of the way down the page I should say, to the mirror icon, and you can see here it's popped up in the mirror dialog box saying you've selected 4 objects, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we need to select the mirroring line. That's why I drew this line here before. So click on mirror line, select the line which is the mirror, and then you see a preview of what that would look like. Yes, that's correct. Click OK. And then we probably could just get rid of that mirroring line. We don't need it anymore. So I'm going to hit T for trim and get rid of it like so. I'm going to leave this other geometry here because I'm going to use that circle later on to extrude something as well. Alright, so let's just recap. 4.8 is the diameter, 2 mil between the vertical lines, which is also 2 mil here. We used a mirror to mirror that geometry about the center line. Finish the sketch. I always like to click on the home button there, and then we're going to extrude this thing out for a length of 23. So select just the cross profile, not the whole thing, and click on the extrude button, of course, and type in 23 and hit the enter button. I'm just going to zoom fit this so I can see. That's good, that's correct. If we go back to our finished product, you can see here that's the majority of this part from here to here now drawn. Now we've got 2 cylinders to draw that are solid. There's one large one, this one narrow one, and then a hole to put at the end of it. The easiest thing to do here is to realize that this diameter cylinder is the exact same diameter as the circle that we drew for the cross profile. So what we'll do now is go back to the demo. I'm going to now find the sketch that we used to draw that cross with. Now what happens is Fusion hides the sketch that you just extruded. So you've actually got to go back to sketches here, expand the sketches icon, and you can see sketch 1 has been turned off. Click on the little eye there to turn it back on again, and you can see sketch 1 is now back on. I'm going to hit shift and 2 fingers to spin this around, and then I'm going to grab all of this profile this time. So select 1, hold down shift, 2, 3, oh missed it, that one, get it right. Get all of those profiles so they all select. It's being a pain. No, got it. Oh, there we go, eventually. And then I'm going to extrude that in the opposite direction for a distance of, look at my notes here, distance of 3 millimeters. Now you notice that the arrow is pointing in the opposite direction, so once I drag the arrow back this way, it straight away goes to a negative Y direction. So just be careful that you leave the negative in front and hit the 3. Make sure it says join, which is correct, and click OK. Let's have a look. Yep, so far so good, that looks good. Alright, next thing to do is then to put the cylinder that's wider, like a collar on here, and then we'll cut a hole in the end. So to do that, the easiest thing is to probably just to put a sketch on that surface there. So you don't actually have to put in a new plane there, it's unnecessary. We can actually sketch by defining an existing sketch area first. So what I mean by that is, if I go select that circle, that's where we want to draw the cylinder, then click on sketch, that will allow us to draw it exactly in that position. I'll show what I mean by going circle, snap to the center, drag out to a diameter of, check my notes, is 6. Now if we then spin that sideways, you'll see what I mean. See? So the sketch is actually created where I selected that edge. Alright, so we can finish that sketch, then we can select that profile, and let's extrude it. This time it's going to go towards me, so grab the arrow, and I think that distance was 0.8 of a millimeter. You notice there's a negative in front, so make sure it remains negative 0.08. Make sure it's not on cut, sorry, not 0.8, 0.8, sorry. 0.8. You can see here that it's defaulted to cut. Well, we don't want it to be cut, we want it to be joined. That looks good. And then the last thing is to put that hole in the center. So I'm going to select the face on the end here and sketch. And that hole is a diameter of 3.2 to a depth of 1 millimeter. So this is a simple circle, 3.2, finish that sketch, select it, extrude, pull it in the opposite direction, and it was a distance of 1 millimeter, so it's negative, get that in correctly, negative 1 millimeter. Either way, with the 0 in front doesn't really matter. That's correct. And it's cutting, that's correct. Okay. Alright, so there is our axle demo with that profile for the cross axle, so it goes into things. So I'll show you in the next drawing how we then can use that sketch on the next part without having to redraw it, which is kind of handy. Make sure you hit save, of course, so you don't lose it, and we'll do the next part, which most likely is going to be one of these other parts down here that fit onto it. Okay, have a go at that.